Hey, what's up, guys? Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Subscribe if you guys don't mind. If you're stopping by here, give a thumbs up, like it. Watch the Tobin and Leroy show every weekday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on the Tobin and Leroy show on WQAM's YouTube feed, excuse me. And you guys can watch us live there. You can watch us live on Twitch. You guys can listen to us live on the Odyssey app. And get the Tobin and Leroy podcast available for you on all podcast platforms. Just talk Heat, Dolphins, Canes, Panthers. Oh, man, I can't wait to talk about that Panthers win tomorrow. God, I hate Boston. Woof. So I saw this clip roaming around Heat Twitter today. I think I saw this on, it was Emo Jimmy's. Is it still Emo Jimmy? Is that still his handle? I think it's still Emo Jimmy. I saw this clip from Tim Legler perusing. And tell me what you make of it. This was Tim Legler. I like Tim Legler a lot. You know, of all the guys they have at ESPN, he's about as good as it gets. He's an OG. He actually watches, I feel like. He actually knows the teams. But he had an interesting thought today about the Miami Heat. And he is wondering if the Miami Heat are going to be interesting or even worthy about talking about anymore if Jimmy, Bam, or Tyler have peaked, if that trio is peaked together. And we'll hear from Legs here. I'm gonna get to my my new setup. Will be ready I know I've been saying that it is going to be very, very, very soon, and so I will be more back to having my board, and this will sound all better and whatnot. But until then, you guys get Tob's phone and a microphone for this very technical setup that we have here. But this was Legs, and hear what you have. Him and his co-host. What is this podcast called? It's called All City NBA. Is that what it's called? The All NBA podcast. Okay, there you go. Here was what they had to say on the Heat.
Are we done caring about the Heat?
Well, so they've been unimpressive all this time, and then they keep having impressive playoff runs. And last year was the first year where it was okay, that's what we thought. The playoffs matched our expectations, so maybe everybody moves on. But what do you think?
It's I think we're kind of at that point, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what do they do with this group. I'm just looking at their roster. I mean, Terry Rozier. Yeah, he didn't have a full season with them last year. Then he got hurt, and that's a tough thing to fit in. Maybe he plays really, really well this year. Coming into the season is a different look when you've had a training camp with the team and you know the guys a lot better and the coaching staff. It's just different rather than doing it on the fly. So maybe he's a lot better. Jovic is a guy that's going to be better this year, man. And again, he had Olympic experience that probably really beneficial to him. Yeah. And he's a very talented young player, so he could have a significant improvement in his impact. And then Jaime Jaquez had a great year last year as a rookie. So you just figures to get better. So I think there's some things there to watch for them. But the question is always going to revolve around those other guys, Herro, Butler, and Adebayo. Have we seen the best of what that looks like? And if that's the case, they're not interesting. But if these other guys elevate and there's more there for them, then they're going to be there'll be a team that we're going to be talking about all years. Watch out for the Heat. That just seems like that's where they always are. And last year they didn't answer that bell at all. So that's why, to me, I put them on this list as one more team that you just don't want to quite forget about yet.
Okay. First of all, I do think it's interesting that when we always say the Miami Heat, didn't do what we expect them to do in the playoffs last year, they had no bodies at the end of the playoffs last year. And I'm not saying that to make excuses for the Miami Heat, but I do think it's one of those things where everybody kind of feels like the Heat were exposed at the end of it. And it's I'll play that game when I hear the Bucks and the Sixers get that same energy. When they get that same critique of, Giannis and Dame weren't available, and even people who question the Celtics run. You can question the Celtics run. I've certainly made fun of them for having a cakewalk, but everybody says it because they say, every star got hurt. Every series that they had, they got to take on banged up teams. Which is true, but it always feels like with the Heat, it's never quite. And maybe they almost do this to themselves, I think, because Miami does the whole "we have enough" thing, and they scoff at excuses. And so it's almost like, I don't know if nationally it's like beat into the brain of everybody that, oh yeah, well the Heat doesn't matter who they don't have, like no excuses. But it just, the only thing that annoys me about it is when you don't have a Jimmy Butler, and Jimmy Butler is playing what was, not only dealing with a lot of personal grief that we all are now very clear about how much Jimmy was hurting personally and then physically. Why isn't that given the same pass or mulligan that Milwaukee or Philadelphia is given? By the way, Paul George, hyperextended knee. Don't wish bad on anybody else, but Paul George and Joel Embiid dealing with knee injuries a week into preseason. But, they'll believe in the Philadelphia 76ers. They'll continue to do that. And maybe that's because, look, to be fair, Joel Embiid can put up monstrous regular season numbers, and Jimmy Butler does not. He is not a regular season player. He did have a buzzer beater last year, but, he's never scored 40 in a regular season game for the Miami Heat. That being said, you guys know what he is in the playoffs, and they didn't have him in the playoffs last year. And you can't tell me Jimmy Butler, whatever that team was last year, that Boston would not be shitting a brick if Jimmy Butler was in that series. That's, you're just never going to have me believe that. Like, the guy has just no fear of that team. So we'll see this year. You're hopeful that's the case. So Tim's point about, okay, if this trio has peaked, the thing that's interesting about it is if you're talking about Tyler, Jimmy, and Bam, have they peaked? Okay, well, Jimmy, we have to know because of his age. Has Jimmy peaked? And that's a very fair question at his age. With Bam, I don't think for him that's the case at all. I think we know Bam Adebayo is a piece of a finals team, a team that can get to the finals multiple times. He's a playoff player. He can stack up. He can be in postseason series. You're going to use him. He's going to be effective to win games. And he's nowhere near peaking. Tyler's always the wild card with the team as a trio because we have not seen Tyler Herro be effective in a playoff run since the bubble. We have not seen it. And that was a year where he also got to have like a break for his body going in it. And that's just been that has been the durability question. And so I think that is fair criticism for that particular trio. But here's the other thing that I am curious about with this Heat team. I don't know if they'll be a 1 seed because most of the time the last, Jimmy's teams are kind of in the middle of the pack of the Eastern Conference. They've been, 4, 5, 6, playing 7, 8. But they've been very close. I mean, don't forget, like, what was the difference last year between the Eastern Conference last year, just for everybody's recollection on this, the Eastern Conference, the Boston Celtics won 64 games. The 2 seed won 50 games. The Heat won 46. This was not like a valley, the Miami Heat. This is a little crack that the Miami Heat have to leap. This is not, I was just talking in my last video about the Kings. And the Kings 2 years ago, 48 wins, they were the 3 seed in the West. Last year they won 2 fewer. And they were a play-in team. Now, the West got a lot better. Did the East get enormously better? They're different. I mean, I get everybody who wants different. I get people who want the Sixers different. I know the Knicks. I've said this in other videos. I think the Knicks are going to be good. I think they are. Indiana, to me, is honestly the most... for some reason, the way they play... more time together now. They're the team that I look at. I'm like, I think that they can still do things. I think they're a team. Cleveland's too weird. I don't know. Orlando, cute. Got to see it. Not sure I buy it. They had one more win than Miami last year. And Indiana for one more win than Miami last year. Miami won 46. They won 47. Philadelphia won 47. Indiana won 47. Orlando won 47. Cleveland won 48. Milwaukee won 49. And again, Mind you, this was the Heat with more starting lineups than they've ever had. This is not about me making excuses. This is about me looking at what they were last year with absolute chaos around their team and thinking about how much worse are they than the rest of the Eastern Conference outside of Boston in the regular season. I give the champs their respect. Obviously, it was Boston and then mother bleeping everybody else. You still had a cakewalk run, though. So, is it time? This is one of those things. Like, Legler's not guilty of this, but most of the national pundits in the ES, they have an arm twisted to talk about the Miami Heat as it is. Although I did see Windhorst blowing up Kel'el Ware. I was like, oh, wow. He's like Derek Lively with a three-point shot. And I was like, oh, man, that's just going to, great. Now if he gets wind of that, now we're going to have to deal with the noise outside. Spo's never going to play him. Great. Thanks, Windy. But anyway, getting back to my point about this team and whether they'll be interesting or not, you go back a couple years where the Miami Heat were the 1 seed, 53 wins that season. And that was, again, that was a bunched up Eastern Conference. Their separation from 1 to the next 4 was 2 games. But they were the 1 seed. And you wonder about the East beating up on itself. You wonder about certainly the other teams that are also dealing with stars that do, other stars do get hurt a lot. ESPN. I know you don't want to ever put that on Joel Embiid, even though it happens every year, or Giannis, because it's happened the last 2 years. But I do wonder, if you do get those jumps that he's talking about with Jovic, with Jaime, I do think this Heat roster's got a lot of things to like. A lot of things to like. I think everybody is excited about a lot of pieces here and how Spo's going to make it work and the variety that it has. And then even the guys who are coming, the guys who are just better, Duncan Robinson, the improvements and the growth of a Jovic and a Jaime Jaquez and what Pella Larson. I mean, the coach really seems to love Pella. Kel'el is a wild card because I don't know. I tell everyone, I don't know. I obviously understand why you want him to play. I get why every Heat fan wants Kel'el to play. But I just go with the coach's history, and I go with what he wants his big men to be, how he wants them to be. And so until I see different, I don't know if I think he's going to play a ton of minutes early on. I don't know. I want him to because I want to see the new stuff. I like new stuff. I like to see the new. But for now, I don't know what that's going to look like. We'll have to wait and see because the season will dictate that. But Legs, we'll see if he can keep him interested this season because he sounds like he's kind of almost rats off a ship.